Here's Brody Brazil.
So I've come up with a graph that I think does a pretty good job in describing what happens to most people in their 30s. And I'll focus in on two main variables here that dramatically change from age 29 to age 40, and those are free time and responsibility. I'll spell that out. I'll play it out here for you in just a second. But I also want to say this. It's all based on my own life experience and what I witnessed a lot of friends go through. So I realize this is not a one-size-fits-all situation. These are all generalities. This is all broad strokes here. But again, free time and responsibility for most people in their 30s greatly change. So let's begin with responsibility, right? When you're 30, generally low. Maybe you can afford to still make mistakes. You're not entirely set in a career, but whoa, what happened right there? Midway through my 30s, it spiked dramatically. And then there were a couple other bumps. And by the time you hit 40, I mean, it's not crazy to say that your responsibilities may have doubled or tripled in life. Now, that big spike for me around age 35, age 36, that was becoming a parent. And what a huge ultimate responsibility that is. You're in charge. You're responsible for somebody else's life. And especially a baby. There's a lot going on there. And me being the dad, it's not just me, but also my wife. I can only imagine what it would be like as a first-time mother. So again, my experiences, my observations here, but responsibility for a lot of people in their 30s at some different point dramatically goes up. Now, I'm using the parent example, but there's also professional aspects to this. And some people have, a huge job change or promotion or role change in their 30s that also is greatly demanding on them. They're responsible for 200 other employees all of a sudden. So responsibility kicks in your 30s to a large extent. And you don't really realize that until you're done with the decade. You think about what life was like at 30 versus what life is like at 40. And I also want to share this too. None of this is meant to intimidate you. None of this is telling you, oh, it's an awful decade. Or, I mean, it might be difficult, right? There's a lot of change. There's a lot of transition. You can get through it. That's not what I'm suggesting here. I'm just saying that you will notice when you look back, responsibility greatly goes up. Free time. When you're 30, yeah, you're out on the weekends, you're doing your thing. Whoa, you see that drop right there? Yeah, well, you already know there in the timeline what happened. Free time goes dramatically down, right? Because you have that responsibility. And I'm, again, using the parent example, but there are other things. Maybe your job takes up twice as much time or takes up a different time frame of your life. I think for most people, as they look back, they had the opportunity to do a lot of different things at age 30, including travel, outings, experiences that at age 40, they can still do. You can still do it. I want to make that clear. It's just a little bit more complicated, generally, to fit in. And so I don't think I'm alone in sharing these two elements right here as the biggest changes of your 30s. I'd be curious what any or all of you have to say about this, but free time and responsibility, this is something that has been ingrained in my mind really in the last handful of years as I was done with my 30s and looking back on the decade. Free time and responsibility, they cross paths and they go in completely opposite directions. But again, this was just the advice that I would want to go back and tell myself at the same respect. It's also a very rewarding decade. There's a lot to get out of it. There's a lot of fun. You're really establishing yourself, I think, as a person in your 30s. And so I guess I have now about 10 years to make a video about my 40s. Let me know what you think about this one in the comments section below.